All right, guys. Opening statement would be, I think yesterday was important for our guys to get some rest and recovery, and that'll need to continue to be the case today here. We're obviously playing a really good team to open in Oral Roberts, who can really score the ball. They're one of the best shooting teams I've seen on film, and their numbers back that up. They obviously have the leading scorer in the country, who's a really dynamic guard, and they play through him at a really high level. They have a couple first-team all-league guys, and they're a good team. They're a good team. When you look at their numbers and who they played 4 or 5 non-conference tournament teams, Arkansas being one, in which they were up for quite a bit of the game, Wichita State, in which they had a chance to win late, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. And that Oklahoma State game was very close as well. So should be a great challenge. They're a tough, well-coached, really dynamic team, particularly shooting the ball. So getting our guys rested and recovered. I don't have any updates on I don't think we'll have any real updates on Kyle for for a little bit now.
All right, we'll go ahead and start with questions. Just a reminder to please state your name and affiliation before asking your question. We'll go ahead and start with Adam Jardy and Tony Girdman on deck. Adam.
Hi, Chris. This is Adam Jardy from the Columbus Dispatch. Nice to meet you. You guys have been battle tested this year, and especially lately, but you guys don't have a lot of just overall NCAA tournament experience on the roster. And I wonder if is that a factor? Like, does that concern you at all, or do you think that you guys have been through enough that doesn't really matter?
No, I think it's something you think of, Adam. I do. I do think you just, you're aware of the fact that most of our guys have not played because the tournament didn't happen last year, when you were really hoping to get some of these guys, like Dwayne and Justin and even Kyle and, other EJ guys experience playing in that tournament. The guys that played in the last one a couple years ago, those guys have moved on. Musa played an important role against Iowa State 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago, I believe, in Houston? I think it's something you think about, something you're thinking about. Okay, what are our guys' nerves going to be? But as you said, it helped going through a tournament experience, I think. At this point, it's win or go home.
Next up is Tony Girdman with Patrick Murphy on deck. Tony
Girdman with Buckeyes Scoop. Chris, you mentioned going against the nation's leading scorer at guard, Max Abmas. You've got a competitive scorer, Dwayne Washington. How do you talk to him about not turning this into a one-on-one situation at times?
I would hope that, Tony, Dwayne's mature enough to understand that this is, this is tournament. This is, you're playing to win every possession. So, playing to win, whatever that requires, but it certainly doesn't require getting involved in a one-on-one battle. And I think he's mature enough to understand that. Could it be something we discuss? I'm not sure. I think Dwayne's really grown in his ability to stay aggressive and yet also, play the game the right way. I really believe he's grown tremendously in that area, but it's also an ongoing process for him, as you guys know.
Next up, Patrick Murphy with Brendan Gulick on deck. Patrick
Murphy from 247 Sports. Chris, another Dwayne question. Over the weekend, set a record in points in a single NCAA tournament, but I think also led you in assists once and rebounds twice in a game. It just seemed he was playing controlled, knew what he had to do, kind of what you were just saying. Was that about as good and what you've wanted to see from Dwayne over the stretch of the weekend and a good sign heading into tournament play?
I hope so. I hope so, Patrick. I think it is an ongoing process with Dwayne. He understands that, but he's such a gifted, offensive player. What we really need from him, and we're going to need it in this Oral Roberts game, is we're going to need him to really be on point defensively and continue to play smart, aggressive basketball. And that's really what we've, tried to challenge him with, is play smart, aggressive basketball. He's supremely confident, as we all know. Sometimes that's gotten him in trouble. And we're all aware of that too. I think he really felt senior day and felt in some ways that he had, not performed like he wanted to in the last 3 or 4 minutes. And I think that motivated him going into tournament time. Now he's got to stay consistent with that.
Next up, Brendan Gulick with Stephen Means on deck. Brendan.
Hey, Chris. Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on
Up a
Sports
little bit.
Illustrated.
I can't hardly hear him. I'm sorry, Brendan. We got
It's okay.
down here. I can't hardly hear it.
All right. That a little bit better, hopefully.
Yeah, I got you now.
Great. Cool. Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated. Obviously, this team shoots the 3-point ball. Oral Roberts, I'm referencing. They shoot the 3 ball about as well as anybody in the country. I realize the numbers say that they're more than 11 a game, and that's number 1 in the nation. Defensively, of the teams that are playing in the NCAA tournament, they have allowed, I think, more points than just about anybody else in the tournament. So when you scout a team that can clearly shoot it and flip the game the way they have the ability to, but they're not that big. I think their biggest guy is roughly about the same size that maybe EJ Liddell is. What are some of the things you see in Oral Roberts when you scout them on both ends of the floor?
Well, just what you said, Brendan. Again, one of the best shooting teams I've seen on film. I mean, and they shoot it from everywhere. And their guard will pull up literally. He's a terrific player. I think he'll eventually be a pro. I really do. He just has the ability to shoot it from everywhere on the floor. That's what we've seen. I think positionally their size is maybe a little bit better than you think. They start, I believe, 6'5", maybe 6'6", 6'8". So positionally, they do have some size. Outside of their center, which is not a 7-footer. I think they really spread you out again, and they shoot it at 5 spots. And their pace of play does allow some teams to score the ball, and yet at the same time, they've obviously seen it be successful because they've outscored a lot of their opponents.
Next up, Stephen Means with Dan Hope on deck. Stephen.
Yeah, Chris, I was going to ask you about Max. I mean, NBA coaches have to deal with players who will literally step past half court and just throw up a shot. College players and college coaches don't necessarily have to deal with that all the time. I don't know. So I guess, how do you guard that? Yeah.
Well, our pickup point's going to need to obviously be different than what it is typically, Stephen, because of how dangerous he is. He really can come across half court and raise up, and he shoots it with great accuracy. I believe he's shooting 46% in league play from 3. It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal numbers. And you're right. It's kind of with Steph and Dame, they've kind of made that common to some degree in the NBA, but you don't see it as much in college. But it is part of his game. It really is part of his game. He's got the ability to raise up and shoot it. He's got strong legs. And he can shoot it from, right across half court, a couple steps off past half court, and he will.
Next up, Dan Hope with Sean Dunnigan on deck. Dan.
Hey, Chris, Dan Hope from 11 Warriors. You guys, coming out of this Big Ten tournament, playing 4 games in 4 days and making that run to the final, how much of a confidence booster is that for your team now that you're going into this tournament setting where you're going to have to play a bunch of games back to back and be able to string together wins again?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, Dan, I think the one getting a win under our belt there early against Minnesota was important for us. And I do think that it gave us a little bit of confidence. Now, I don't know that we were shook maybe as much as, people might have expected us to be shook during that closing stretch. And I've never been one, honestly, to really read too much into a losing streak or a winning streak in necessarily what that guarantees going into tournament play, because I don't think it guarantees much of anything. I think, you're trying to take the pulse of your team, and if they're in a good place, then you feel good about going into the tournament. And I felt like we were in a good place going into the Big Ten tournament. And now we got to get rest and get our guys in a good place. But I don't want to minimize, obviously we did need to play well in the Big Ten tournament. I think that helps us. And now we'll see if we can build on it in this game versus Oral Roberts.
Next up, Sean Dunnigan with Patrick Murphy on deck. Sean.
Sean Dunnigan with WBNS. Chris, you've been now in a bubble in Indianapolis for a little less than a week between the Big Ten tournament and now the NCAA. How has the team handled so far being in the bubble, and how do you think that it's going to be if you got when you guys make a long run?
Well, listen, we're focused on is the day in front of us. But it's a good question. I get your question. I don't know. I don't think right now, we've been in here, as you mentioned, a week. I don't get the sense that our guys are fatigued about being in the bubble or being in Indianapolis and living kind of hotel life. I think, yesterday it was classes, Zoom classes, very little meetings because we wanted them off their feet. And hopefully they caught up on some sleep and rested their bodies. But I've not noticed any fatigue yet along those lines. I think we'll see. It is interesting being in this environment and obviously being here a week prior due to the Big Ten. It's just a really unique situation.
All right, time for just a couple more. Patrick Murphy with Tim Hall on deck. Patrick
Murphy, 247 Sports. Chris, similar to what Adam and Dan asked you, but in terms of the entire Big Ten season, just how prepared did you think that made you? I know you talked a lot about how good this conference was, but how prepared does that make you then to take on, non-conference teams, which you haven't seen in a while, and you'll eventually run into some good ones if you make a run? Yeah,
I hope it really prepares us. I think the one thing you can't have is this false sense of, well, we played in a great league, so that guarantees us something, because it doesn't guarantee us anything. We've got to earn whatever it is we get. And just because we played in, I think a league that is as good as it's been in a number of years, it doesn't guarantee any Big Ten team to perform well in the NCAA tournament. It's styles, it's matchups, it's how you play, it's how you perform. Having said that, I do embrace the idea of going through, as you guys know, a tough schedule and a tough league. I think that is a good thing. I think it's helped us in the past, but I just think you got to be careful, or, we have to be careful as coaches and players that we don't think it guarantees us anything, because it certainly won't.
We have time for one more question here from Tim Hall.
Tim Hall, 97.1 The Fan. Hey, Coach, I was up late on Sunday and watching BTN, and they had Fran was up there and Painter was there too. And I think it was McCaffrey who said, and I was wondering if you had any philosophies or anything when you get to this part of the week going into a sort of a new season with tournament play. And they asked him about seeds, being a 2 seed and a 15 seed, as if to maybe suggest that it's an easier path. And he just kind of had like a stone cold look on his face and said, I don't care about seeds. Like I don't look at seeds when we get to the tournament. Every team is good. Every team can beat you. And I mean, you get a Summit League team. They had you had to face a guy named Mike Daum at the last time around. That was not an easy task at all. I just wondered if you do anything with your team or reminders or messages when you get to this part of the season.
Yeah. We will, Tim. We will. When we meet, we'll talk about, I think there used to be maybe a bigger gap, and those that, I know you followed college basketball for a number of years, there used to be maybe a bigger gap between, seedings and teams than there is now. There just isn't as much now. The teams, there's, there is less of a gap in terms of, the quality of teams. And it really does come down to how you execute and how you play. And I agree with Fran on that. I don't think, I think, in some ways, fans can look at seeding and say, wow, that's really important to get that because of that. Coaches are looking at how you're playing and they recognize that if you got in this tournament, with the exception of, I don't know, maybe on a given year, a team or two, if you get in this tournament, you're a really good team. And again, for us, it's easy to reference a team we played a couple years ago from the same league. And it was, as you guys know, a nail biter, right down to the wire. And also, you can also reference a team like this who played a number of NCAA teams who were seeded pretty well and either was ahead for most of the game or had a chance to win. So I think we've got great respect for Oral Roberts. We've got great respect for our opponent and the challenges. And if we're fortunate enough to play well and win, then we'll move on to the next task at hand and know that's going to be a really quality opponent too. So I think that's how you have to approach it. And I think that's the maturity that's going to be required of our guys.
Coach, appreciate your
I
time.
think they do. Yeah, I do think they understand that. I think they understand it, but we'll make sure they do. But
Awesome. Coach, thank you.
okay. All right, guys.